Good evening and welcome to Driver's Ed. Hopefully everyone's having a good night. Had a little bit of a technical problem with sound here, so I'm madly running around trying to get everything working. Good evening. Waiting for people to jump on board. Hello, hello. Good to see all the names coming up. I suspect we're going to have a full class tonight since we are at the midpoint, midterm. So make sure that you sign in. Text me that you're here, as well as being on YouTube comments. We're going to wait another minute or so before we get going. What we'll do this evening, as I mentioned yesterday, that we'll go about 45 minutes or so on the topic of parking, and then we'll do the remainder of tonight, which will take us probably right to 9:30 if we start right at 8:45. The midterm will be timed at 45 minutes. And I think I have 70 or 80 questions. So it's going to give you about 30 seconds to answer most of the questions. If you, the Facebook page is where you're going to go and get your link for the midterm. So after we're done tonight's topic on parking, go to Facebook, our Facebook group. Hit the link and I will give you the password to get you in to do it. Remember that you can go back and look at your answers once you submit it. It's a one-shot deal, so you don't get to redo it. And do the best that you possibly can. Some of the questions are very tricky, so think about what they're asking and then answer the question. But it is only the midterm. People ask what will happen if I don't do well. It just gives you some idea of what you're retaining for information and what you're got to buckle down and take better notes, whether it be from the PowerPoint, do a better job reading from the textbook or the manual. But that's it. It's pretty straightforward. And like I said, it is a little complicated with some of the signs, but I wanted to challenge you to see if you could actually think it out logically what the correct answer would be. All right? And I will be available. I don't know how you're going to take the test, whether it's on your phone, computer, tablet, but if you have a way to text me and you've got a question, I don't know if I can actually go in and look at the questions at the time. But I'd try to help you out a little bit. But I really want you to kind of do this on your own, not so much from any help that I give you. So let's get right into tonight. Get out a piece of paper and take some notes. So tonight's topic is on parking. We're going to talk about some of the reference points that we're going to use when we start driving to make you a successful driver when it comes to parking. I find that parking, if done slowly, and if you have a plan how to set things up, parking is really not that complicated. Now, there are three terms that I want you to be familiar with, so I want you to write this down. Stopping, standing, and parking. When it comes to regulating the side of the road or parking lots, these are the three terms: stopping, standing, and parking. It basically explains what you're able to do in front of, let's say, a building. So let's talk about, we all know what parking is. We know a parking lot. That's where you put the car in park between lines and you go into a building, let's say the mall or the movies, and you leave your car for a period of time. But sometimes you're going to see a sign outside of a building that says no stopping or standing. So here's the definition. No standing means you can stop to let people out of the car or pick someone up who is already there. Good example would be the airport, all right? Which means that you got to let someone out of the vehicle to go catch their flight, and they're going to grab their luggage. They get out of your vehicle, and off you go, all right? But there's no waiting for someone or loading or unloading. So it's not quite when you come back to the airport. It's a little different. They're not going to let you stand right in front of the terminal, usually now, to wait for someone to come out. It could be 20 minutes, could be a half hour, could be an hour. So this is for people only. No stopping is very restrictive. It's the most restrictive. You can't stop at the curb for any reason. Okay? So they don't even want you to let people out, which is very restrictive. And a lot of times they're going to have police officers around. So it's basically to keep our roadways and highways open. It prevents blocking of these areas. They keep them clear. We want movement. And remember, these laws apply in all situations unless there are signs indicating otherwise. And remember, parking is going to be regulated by a white sign. White means law or regulation. Red is telling you not to do something. White with black lettering is telling you to do something. So here's an example of no parking between signs. You're going to find this in a lot of parking lots. If you're familiar with the Works Bakery in Durham, they have signs up in the parking lot, something like this, indicating that if you don't have a permit to park your car overnight there, then you can't. They do allow you to park to use the grocery store and the bakery and the other facilities that they have there, but they're going to, during the school year, have someone watching you as you get in and out of your vehicle. And if you go across the street, they're going to be calling the tow truck to come tow you. So be very careful about parking in places that have these type of signs. Here's another restrictive area that they don't want you to park. They don't want you to park where there's a fire hydrant. And legally, they can actually bust out your windows to get the hose through. They don't want any kinks in the hose, so they want the most direct pathway to the nozzle, to the fire hydrant. So they'll bust out your car, and it's your responsibility to get it fixed, not theirs. This is tight parking. A lot of people ask me, how closely can I park my vehicle to another car? Now, no one wants their car to have scratches and dings and paint markings. So you don't want to park so close. So in your notes, you should always allow room for you to get out of your vehicle and for people to get into their vehicle. So sometimes you can't quite open the door all the way, but you should be able to open it up far enough that a person can get out. In this case, and this was a video that I found, but I'm not going to be able to show it because I couldn't quite find it on my hard drive. It was on my laptop, and I wasn't able to transfer it over. But this is a car wash, and these are the cars of the owner. And he did that on purpose. So this was not something that was intentional. They wanted it to be that close. And it is about an inch or two from each other. So as long as you don't hit another car, technically, there's really nothing wrong with it. Now, people may not be happy, but you didn't hit the car. So you're not doing anything wrong. So if they're on the white line and you're pretty darn close to the white line, it's going to look like that at some point. So here are some key points to remember when parking. Say, write this one down. Move as far away from traffic as possible. You want to be about a foot away, technically about a foot away from the curb. When you do open your door, try to avoid traffic. When you come or when you leave your car, secure it, so lock it, put the alarm system on. Make sure your car can't move, so that could be setting the parking brake. And then when you do leave your car, check traffic before you open the door. So that means you're going to be checking your side view mirror and looking over your shoulder before a door opens up, because you don't want to create a problem for another car that's coming down the road, and you certainly don't want to open your driver's side door if there's a bicycle coming by. And by the way, we'll talk about this the last week of class. There was an incident in Durham where someone did open their door. A bicycle did hit the door. He went over the top, hit his head, didn't have a helmet on, and he died from that collision. And this is in our little town of Durham that this happened. When you don't park as close to the curb, this is an editorial that was sent in many, many years ago from an elderly gentleman from Somersworth that received a ticket in Dover for parking 18 inches away from the curb. He was not happy. He had paid the meter. He had legally paid to use a parking spot, but because he was further away than a foot, the parking police officer, whatever they call them, gave him a ticket. Said, you can't do that. Wasn't actually out on the road. He may have been on the line, but gave him a ticket. So just remember that can happen. So when you do park by the side of the road, what are some of the key things that you should remember? First of all, you should always try to stay on the pavement. All right? But in an area that is for parking. So you don't want to be parking on the sidewalk or on a curb. If it's not possible to pull off the road completely, you have to be seen for 200 feet in either direction. So just over a hill, around a corner, this is where that would come into play. You've got to give people time to move their position, right of center, left of center, whatever it is, to make room for vehicles that are coming towards them. And the last one, parking lights are for parking, not emergency lights. Okay, so use your parking lights. If you're in your vehicle, you have it on, but you're not going to be leaving for a bit. You may not want to use your headlights, but parking lights do need to be on. And this is especially true for parking in parallel parking spots off on the side of the roadway. When will the police tow vehicles? If it's left on the road without a note, so this is why it's important to leave a note indicating why you've left it. I've got a flat tire, I've run out of gas, I have no engine oil, the light came on, I don't want to drive it. Just leave a note saying, I will be back in 2 hours. You may have a buddy that's got a truck, he's got a hitch. But you've got to leave a note. You've got to leave your phone number and your name. And I would recommend calling this number, 1-800-525-5555. It's important, and I didn't check in the new manual that you're looking through whether this phone number, this was taken from the old manual. Write this down, not only the number, but write a few things in on your phone. It's always good to put it in notes. So if you've got your phone, put it under your notes. I have an Apple phone, so it goes right in under my notes, and I have it local emergency number to call. That way, I'm not searching for it. It's right in my notes. I just kind of make a search. It's a good thing to have. You may also want to include the phone number of your local police. Durham, Madbury, Lee. That way, you'll always have it handy. That way, you don't have to look it up on the internet. Now, these situations that I'm going to give you are what I call common sense. Situations where you just should never, ever, ever park. Should never double park. And now, I made an exception here. delivery truck. So if you ever get a job where you're working for, let's say, Frito-Lay or Pepsi, you can actually pull up side by side with a car that's parallel park, get out of your vehicle, make your delivery, but I think you're regulated by how long you can be double park. I think it's like 5 or 10 minutes. So you're hustling. You're not leaving that vehicle there for a long period of time. But you are able to, and you'll see this in Durham. You'll be going downtown Durham and you'll see a delivery truck right in the middle of your lane. Legally, he can do that, but he's got to do it quick. He's got to move it quick. Now, these are all situations where I think if you have common sense, you know you're just not going to do it. On a sidewalk, in an intersection, on a crosswalk, on a bridge, all things you should have the whereabouts that you're not going to do it. Highway tunnel, any way that you're blocking traffic or other people that are trying to get by on the roadway, in front of a driveway, all common sense. Now we're going to deal with numbers. These are the numbers that I want you to know. So you've got to write these down. 15 feet of a fire hydrant. And remember, I told you, anything that deals with fire in driver's ed will probably have a 5 in the number. So in this case, 15 feet. 20 feet of a crosswalk. Okay, that's just about a car length, or a little bit bigger than a car length. And then a little bit further back, 30 feet, is going to be your stop sign, yield sign, traffic control signal. Now, the next one is a little bit complicated to figure out. 20 feet on the fire station entrance side, 75 on the opposite. Now, the reason why you've got a bigger number on the opposite side is because your emergency EMTs and fire trucks are going to make a wide turn. So it's going to go out wide over on the opposite side of the road. So when it's on the same side, it can be tucked in pretty tight, pretty close, almost like with a crosswalk, 20 feet. And then when it comes to railroads, 50 feet of the nearest rail or railroad crossing. Handicap parking, we know is going to be a blue sign with the H. We know that designation means you can't park there unless you've got a handicap placard that's hanging from your rearview mirror. You could have something that's in your windshield down in the corner, or you could have a designation on your license plate. All those are going to be indicators that you can park there. If you park there and you don't have one of these, your fine's going to be at least $250. If you park next to a handicap parking spot where you have those yellow or white lines at a diagonal, you're going to get fined $50, $100, or $250. I'm not going to test you on money amounts. There's only one money amount that I'll test you in driver's ed, but we haven't gotten to it yet, so you don't have to worry. I just want you to know you're not parking in that slashed out area. I think most of you have common sense that you're not going to do a handicap parking spot. Wonder if you just be parking in a parking lot and you see someone taking a handicap spot, what can you do? Well, you could call the police, wait for them to come and, show them what you saw. But if you're in a hurry, but you still want the police to take care of that person that's taking that handicap spot, you could take a photo and send it in a text or an email indicating, who you are, what you saw, the time of day. Well, it's going to be time stamped if you send it by text. And they will follow up on it because remember, they're going to have the registration. Your license plate is your registration, and there's an address on that. So as long as you give them the license plate number, they'll dig up who owns that vehicle, who's registered to that vehicle. And if you have elderly grandparents, and my dad has to have a spot. He's got a bad heart. Can barely walk. He's got a cane. So it's always aggravating when I bring him to doctor's appointments and I can't find a handicap spot to use for him to walk into the building. So be courteous. Be kind. Now let's talk about some different types of driving that you're going to do with me once you get behind the wheel. One of the skills that the state likes to see is how well can you back a car out into a roadway? Or how well can you be in reverse and move the car to the right or to the left? A lot of people get their rights and lefts mixed up, and the directions just confuse them when they're reverse. So at some point, whether you're in a parking spot or if they take you to a driveway, something like I'm going to show you, they're going to try to see how well can you maneuver a vehicle in reverse. So this is something that we're going to work on. So I did videos for Driver's Ed. I did one at the beginning of this COVID-19 pandemic. I did this one on backing, and I finished the one on parallel. I have not done one on angle parking, and I have not done one for backing into parking spots. So the videos that you see are videos that I did with my son, and I'm hoping that you find them helpful. So let me show you how you should be backing out of a parking spot. So let's take a look at this video. Okay, let's break this down, what you saw in the video. And I didn't talk over the music. I just kind of let the car movement do the work for me. But as you saw when I was in the driveway, is put yourself in a place to be successful for backing out. Which I mean by that is don't get so close to the edge of the driveway that when you turn the wheels that your front end's going to go over into the grass or go over to another vehicle. So always think about placement. If you got your car into the driveway, you're going to have to get it out at some point. So think about what's going to happen when I do put it in reverse. What's my front end going to do? Second point, when you go for your driver's test, you better know if they tell you to back to the right or back to the left, you better know which way you're turning the wheel. You have to know right from left. So whenever someone says back to the right, they're talking about which way the back end is going. All right? The back end of your vehicle is going to the right. The back end of the vehicle is going left. When you back up, use your mirrors. Look over your shoulder, but in bold type here, it says stop at the end. Check for traffic. If you do not do this on your driving test, they're going to fail you. They're looking at your technique of backing. Look both ways. Stop at the end of the driveway. Check for traffic, and then end in the correct lane. Okay? That's backing in a nutshell. And this is something that we're going to do. Every single one of you are going to be doing this. This is usually our second lesson out in the vehicle. The next type of parking is angle parking, and I don't have a video for this, so let me kind of go through some of the key points here. So after tonight's lesson, if you ever want to go back and re-watch what we've done, I've got some of these videos on my YouTube channel. If you want this PowerPoint, if you want it in a PDF file, just text me that you want it. I'll send you all these bullets That way you can look at it and think about it and use it when you go out with your parents. But angle parking is the easiest of all types of parking that there is. And it goes off at a 45-degree angle. Usually you find it downtown areas, fast food restaurants, places that you want traffic only going in one direction. Also remember that when you go into a parking lot, you have to go in that one direction where the arrow painted on the pavement is pointing. And you can park either right or left with ease. There really isn't one way that's more difficult than the other. So approach from the middle or slightly opposite the direction that you want to park. So if you're going to park to the right, go to the left a little bit. If you're going to park to the left, go to the right a little bit. So try to give yourself some room to get into your parking spot. So what is the key to angle parking? When do you start turning? Here's the most important thing to remember about angle parking. Start turning when your side mirror is even with the first line of the parking spot that you want to park into. Once you're halfway in, straighten the wheels and then go the rest of the way in. Okay, backing up. Go out halfway, check traffic slowly, turn your wheels till you're clear, and then turn the wheel. All right? Perpendicular parking. I find this to be probably the most difficult type of parking. All right? Two-way traffic, it's easier to the left than to the right. Be picky on the spot that you want to take. So there's usually a lot of parking spots. Start turning when your bumper is even with the first parking line. And then when you're halfway in, then work on your position. Let me show you the video. It's probably best to show the video in perpendicular than to go over it. So let's go through the perpendicular video. One of the problems with perpendicular parking, it's the approach. Most people don't understand or they forget that it's two-way traffic. So you should always be in the correct lane as you approach. If you try to cheat to go into a parking spot early, you're bound to cut off your lines and your angles. When parking to the left, you should be as far as you possibly can at the end of the painted lines of the parking spots that are next to you. You should look out your side window. You should line up your shoulder with one of the parking lines. If you take a look out the window from the driver's seat, your shoulder will be lined up with a parking line prior to the parking spot that you're going to be taking. The front bumper is now even with the first line of the parking spot you'll be parking in. Put on your signal, lightly let go of the brake, and gradually turn the wheel to the left. You still should be able to see the left parking light underneath your side mirror as you start to approach into your parking spot. Once you are straight, straighten up your wheel and go to the end of your parking spot. As you approach into your parking spot, use the lines of the parking spot in front of you to help center yourself in your parking spot, making sure that you do not go through the end line into the parking spot in front of you. Here's a car that is going in the middle of the traveling lane, starting to turn the wheel before the front bumper gets to the first line. So you're coming at an angle. You're probably cutting off a little bit of the left line and you're turning extremely sharp to get into your parking spot. Now you're in your parking spot, you're parallel to your lines, but if there were parked cars, you would have a problem. Now we're approaching the same parking spot, but we're going beyond the shoulder line, beyond the bumper with the first line. Now we're going to go far over into the right side of a parking spot, backing into the left spot, and now you're in your parking spot. Very close to the right side of the line of your parking spot. Plenty of room off to the left. It doesn't look that bad from the outside, but if there was a car to the right of us, we would have hit it. So let's just kind of go back and do each of those maneuvers and set up cones with a piece of wood and see if we would have hit cars. Okay, what we've done is we've set up some safety cones with a thin piece of wood to simulate where a side of a vehicle would be. We're basically about a foot off the line on either side. One of the problems with a vehicle, it does give you a reference as you pull in. Now we're going to lose these cones as we go into our parking spot, and that's very common for a new driver. They lose sight of what is to the left or the right of the vehicle because they're focused so much onto the front part of the car. So let's get in the car and take a look at not having good angles coming into your parking spot. I'm approaching from the middle of the traveling lane. I'm going to start my turn a little bit early. This is a common problem for most people. They try to get in at the very top of the white line, and then they find that they're going to hit the car to the right, so they turn real sharp to the left. Now you notice that we didn't hit the cones, but we are on the line to the left of our parking spot. Never want to hit a car again. This time we're going to go a little bit beyond the shoulder line, the bumper with the first line of your parking spot. So this is going to be a late turn into a parking spot. So here we are turning very, very lately. As you see, hitting the cone, hitting the wood. It would have been a car. If you have a new driver, you don't have a safety brake where you could stop the car. You've just had your first crash. Let's talk about one of the most difficult things of perpendicular parking. Maybe not so much getting in, but a lot of people forget that they've got to get out of their parking spot. And a lot of times when you're going to be backing to the right, now you can back to the left or to the right out of a perpendicular parking spot, but here's a person that only looks to the right, doesn't look to the left, and starts turning the wheel way too early. Notice, hits the piece of wood. That would be scraping up on the side of a car. You now have another crash because you don't focus your attention to the front of the vehicle. Let's go back in and do it the right way. Okay, let's talk about how to get out of a parking spot correctly and safely. You have a choice. You can back to the left or you could back to the right out of a perpendicular parking spot, so it doesn't matter which way that you go. I prefer always backing to the left because it's going to be a wider turn. It's not going to be quite as sharp as the one to the right. But the most important thing to remember about backing out of a perpendicular parking spot is to have your rear view mirror and your side view mirrors adjusted, because even though you're focusing your attention to the right or to the left, what could be coming down the traveling lane, you got to remember there are parked cars behind you in a busy parking lot. And if they're backing out at the same time that you're backing out, and they're not looking at you and you're not looking at them, you are now on a crash course and you're going to hit each other. So my recommendation for backing out of any parking spot is to go out left, right check, go out 6 inches, stop, look again, go out a little bit further, check, check. When you see that no one's coming and you're halfway out would bring your body to the end of the painted parking lines on either side. No one's backing out of a parking spot. No traffic is coming down in either direction. You now can perform your maneuver to the left. So we're going to turn sharp to the left, and that is going to bring us way over onto the left side of the parking lot. Then we can straighten up. You may not be able to get fully straight, but at least you're not going to be hitting a car backing out of a parking spot. Let's take a look at what it would look like if you were to back out from the right. So let's go back into the parking spot. We line up our shoulder with the line prior to the parking spot that we want. We check our rear view mirror, no traffic's coming towards us. We start our turn, we do hand over hand for a quicker, smoother turn. We're coming into our parking spot, we're almost completely straight. We use the lines in front of us. We straighten up our wheel. We go the rest of the way in, trying to get equal space on both sides. So let's back to the right. So putting on your signal, looking both directions, going out 6 inches or so, checking, going out a little bit further, because if there was a car coming, they'd see your backup lights and they would stop to let you out. Now we're at the very end of the painted lines to the right and to the left of us. We are now going to gradually turn to the right till we cleared the car to the left. and now we turn the rest of the way. But notice you're not going to be able to get straight because you have to back out halfway. This is when you put it in drive, you straighten up your car, and you get over into the correct side of your traveling lane. Now for the most difficult way to perpendicular park is to the right. The reason being is traffic is supposed to stay over to the right. But in order to get into that parking spot between the cones, I have to bring my vehicle all the way over as far as I can to the end of the painted lines to the left of me. I am still going to line up my shoulder with the line of the parking spot prior to the parking spot that I want. I put on my signal, and now I start my turn. Hand over hand. Notice I'm not going to hit the cone to the left, which is very common. I wait till I'm straight, and I straighten up my wheel. I approach my parking spot to the furthest point to the left. I line up my shoulder with the line prior to my parking spot. I hesitate. I let go of the brake. I go hand over hand. Watch that I don't hit the cone with the wood. That would be a car. I straighten up my wheel. And now I'm perfectly centered in my parking spot. I approach my parking spot as far to the left as I possibly can without getting too close to the cars that are to the left of me. I line up my shoulder with a line prior to the spot that I want. I hesitate for a moment. I let go of the brake. I go hand over hand. Notice the left corner is not getting too close to the cones on the board where there would be a car. I wait till I'm straightened up. And now I'm centered in my parking spot, making sure that I don't go too deep. Okay, now we're going to back out of the parking. So the easiest way to explain perpendicular parking is to always stay as far away as your parking spot as you possibly can. And have a reference point. Now, I use the shoulder with the line before the spot that you want. But you also have to remember that you're driving a Toyota Camry in driver's ed. If you've got a F-150 truck, it's going to probably be a little bit different because of the radius that your car is turning. Same thing if you had a Mini Cooper. It's going to be 2 to 3 feet shorter than the car that you're driving with me. So you're going to turn after the shoulder line. But the most important thing is to learn your vehicle that you're driving. Learn to adapt what you're doing. Have a plan on how to get your car into that parking spot. And the other thing I should have mentioned, the first thing when we talked about parking is I don't care how you get into a parking spot, and I don't think the state really does, as long as you're safe and consistent. If you could do it the same way every single time, go for it. It doesn't have to be my way, but you have to be able to open up your door and be safe. So people can get out of their vehicle. When you're backing out, you're doing it the correct way so you don't hit other cars. So that's the most important thing. Now, I am showing you the way that I find it easy to get in. I'm going to show you a person that's having a difficult time with parking. And here's a person that can't parallel park. Let's see how bad they actually are. So what you're going to see is that the angle is off. The person that's taking the video is in the car.
Is she serious? Or she's giving up?
I hope she's trying to turn around now.
No, she's not.
Angle is way too wide.
Yep, she hit us.
Wow, this bitch is dumb.
Now you would think she just hit this blue pickup. You would think that she would acknowledge and say sorry. She's just waving traffic to go by.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
She hit us.
So you'd think that she would probably drive away now. She could try it again.
Fucking car's all dented up on the side. You don't know.
She's gonna hit him again. She didn't learn the first time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay, now the guy's gonna get out. Now he gets out. She's gonna pull away. She wants no part of it. So let's talk about parallel parking. A lot of people think it's the hardest parking to do. It really isn't. So what you want to do is you want to stop before the empty parking spot, make sure there's nobody behind you, then pull forward about 2 feet from the car that is in front of your parking spot. And then when your side mirror is even with their side mirror, you want to turn the wheel sharp to the right, create a 45-degree angle. Then you want to back up straight. And then you want to back up to about a foot away from the curb. And once you're a foot away from the curb, then you're going to turn to the left. And then you're going to reposition your vehicle. So let's take a look at what it looks like, parallel parking. So here's an overhead view of parallel parking. And this is a video that I did with my son. Let's take a look today at one of the hardest driving maneuvers, parallel parking. Three easy steps to parallel parking: right, straight, and left. What's so hard about parallel parking? With a little bit of practice, anybody can do it. Okay, parallel parking really isn't that complicated, and hopefully this was somewhat helpful so you can see the angles. Most people that parallel park are going to do it in 2 steps. They go all the way to the right, which is a little bit wider than a 45-degree angle. Then they turn all the way left. That's fine. That's a way that a lot of your parents have probably been taught to do it. You can do it that way, but it's a very small window to be correct. Because if you get your angle too wide, it just won't work. You're going to hit the curb or hit a car. I kind of like the 3 steps the way I teach it. It's a little bit more forgiving, and you get to see when you go to the next step. So hopefully these videos did help you out. I will do backing into parking spots. Hopefully the last week of class, we have a review time. By then I'll have maybe another video, and I'll explain how to back into a perpendicular parking spot. But I wanted to give you enough time tonight to get to the midterm. So we're going to break for midterm, so the rest of the class will be the test. But I also want you to, I'm looking at what you have to do for tomorrow. You need to read Chapter 15 in Responsible Driving and do the questions at the end, those assessment questions, and read Section 10 in the manual. So we're going to be talking about changing tires, jump starting a car, hood flies up, the car gets submerged in water. So all driving emergencies will be discussed tomorrow. So we're going to go to the midterm. I am going to put in the comments right now. We only got 14 people. This will be interesting. They won't be able to get on and figure out how to get onto the test. So I'm going to give you the password. I'm going to type it into the comments on YouTube. Okay? So here is your password to get into the midterm. Let's see if you got it. There you go. So it isn't a capital. It's small letters. That is your password. Go to the link on Facebook. Good luck with the midterm tonight. And it will send me your score. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Do your reading and good luck. See you tomorrow.